If you earn 30,000 rupees in a tier 1 city, investing 20% of your salary gets you nowhere. But here's the dangerous part. If you earn 2 lakh rupees and if you're only investing 20%, you're burning money and you don't even know it. The reason is everyone's been lying to you about this flat percentage rule. Hi, I'm Vikas Kulkarni and I'm documenting my personal journey to build my first crore by 2027 and second crore by 2030. I share what I'm actually learning, not financial advice, just my real numbers and first principles thinking. I've been in the market since 2020, built a 70 lakhs portfolio by 25, and I'm sharing the exact framework that's working for me right now. Today, I'm breaking down asset allocation frameworks for 4 specific income brackets. That is 30,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees, 1 lakh, and 2 lakhs and above. If you're short on time or just want to know the frameworks for your specific salary bracket, feel free to jump right into your salary bracket. I have timestamped all these salary brackets, but you'll be better off watching the full video as you'll understand the first principles thinking. And with that said, we're factoring in 2026 inflation data, post 2024 tax regime changes, and the one thing that actually builds wealth, and that is risk capacity. Not risk appetite, but risk capacity. Risk appetite is how much risk you're willing to take. Risk capacity is how much risk can you actually afford to take. A 22-year-old kid with 50,000 rupees salary might have an appetite to put everything into crypto. His capacity, however, is zero because he needs to understand or he needs to build that emergency fund first. Let's break this down by bracket and I'll show you the exact thinking behind each one. Picture this, you're earning 30,000 rupees a month. At this salary range, you probably live in a PG that rent in Bengaluru or Mumbai takes 10,000 to 15,000 rupees. Groceries take another 3 to 4k, metro card, phone bills, subscriptions you forgot about. Let's say you have 2,000 rupees of miscellaneous expenses. Now that's about 20 to 22,000 rupees gone. You're left with 9,000 rupees. Now, the traditional wisdom says put 20% of your salary into investing. That's 6,000 rupees. Keep 3,000 rupees for miscellaneous. But here's where the trap opens up. You put that 6,000 rupees into a Nifty 50 ETF. It feels good and you finally started investing. Then the market crashes 50% and it usually crashes 50% every 3 to 4 years like clockwork. Your 72,000 rupees investment over the year is now worth 60,000 rupees. But here's the real problem. You don't have an emergency fund. You get sick and it costs about 30,000 rupees for tests and treatment, or your bike needs a repair and 50,000 rupees is gone. Your friend needs help with some urgent expense and you're the only one who might be able to help. Now you have to sell those mutual funds. You're forced to exit at 60,000 rupees. You just booked a 12,000 rupees loss. But here's the hidden damage. You didn't just lose 12,000 rupees, you broke and you lost the discipline. You learned that investing doesn't work because you were forced to sell at a loss, and next month when you think about putting money in again, that 12,000 rupees loss is right there in your head, making you hesitant. Now this is what I call the forced exit trap, and it kills more investment plans at 30,000 rupees than market ever will. At 30,000 rupees, your best bet isn't the stock market but on you. Here's the actual order of operations. Step 1, build your emergency fund, 0 to 6 months of expenses. Set aside 5,000 rupees into a recurring deposit every month. That's 60,000 rupees in a year. In 2.5 years, you've got about 1.5 lakh rupees. But wait, it'll actually take much less time than that if you follow what comes next. Step 2, invest in yourself parallelly. If you invest that 5,000 rupees surplus and get 15,000 rupees in the market over an year, that's about 9,000 rupees in that year. But if you spend that 5,000 rupees on a certification, learning AI agents, data analytics, Figma, or whatever your industry needs and bump your salary to 50 to 75,000 rupees, that's 100% jump in cash flow. Think about that. The ROI on the market is irrelevant at 30,000 rupees. ROI on yourself is everything. I'm not saying the stock market doesn't work. I'm saying that at 30,000 rupees, you're playing a different game than someone at 1 lakh rupees. At 1 lakh rupees, market returns compound into serious wealth, and at 30,000 rupees, salary increases compound into serious wealth. If you're very early in your career, obsessing over the Sensex and Nifty is a waste of mental energy. The people who move out of the 30,000 rupees bracket aren't investing their way out, but they're earning their way out. They learned a new skill, they negotiated harder, they moved companies, they took on contract work, freelancing, they built a side project. All of these actions moved them from 30,000 to 50,000 to 75,000 or higher. Then once they had 1.5 lakh rupees in emergency fund and moved to a higher salary, then the stock market strategy kicked in. But okay, let's say you're absolutely determined to invest at 30,000 rupees. Maybe you're staying with your parents and you're able to save it up, right? First, I would say start with building an emergency fund. You can start with 5,000 rupees per month into a recurring deposit. This guarantees just over 1.5 lakh rupees in 2.5 years, which is liquid and safe. Next, with the remaining 1,000 rupees a month, you can look into an index fund like the Nifty 500 ETF. This is only for habit building through real market exposure and not as a primary growth driver. Because at 30,000 rupees, your constraint isn't investment knowledge, it's capital availability. You don't have enough buffer, so you hedge your bets. Most of your investment is liquid in a recurring deposit and a small amount is in markets for learning. The person who follows this framework will build 1.5 lakh rupees emergency fund in 30 months, have learned how markets work through small amounts invested, and be ready to move to the 50,000 rupees bracket with actual financial stability. On the other hand, the person who puts all that 6,000 rupees into Nifty 50 will likely be forced to sell at a loss and just give up. With that said, we move on to the second salary bracket of 50,000 rupees, where discipline becomes your superpower. Roughly 30,000 rupees goes in expenses, leaving about 15 to 20,000 rupees to invest. See, your brain isn't measuring wealth by that absolute number. It's measuring by the delta, the difference between what you earn and what you need. At 30,000 rupees with 9,000 rupees surplus, you felt poor, so you were careful. At 50,000 rupees, however, with 15,000 rupees surplus, you feel like you made it. Now you deserve things. You move to a better house that increases your expense by, let's say, 5,000 rupees, better food or more dining out. Again, add another 5,000 rupees. Suddenly, your 20,000 rupees surplus becomes 10,000 rupees. And here's the thing, you didn't actually lose income, your mindset scaled with your salary. Most people at 50,000 rupees think they're investing by putting 10,000 rupees into markets, but they've actually reduced their real investing capacity from 20,000 rupees to 10,000 rupees because of invisible spending increases. This is why I said earlier, the biggest risk at 50,000 rupees isn't the market, it's lifestyle inflation. But the good news is that if you're aware of this, you can beat it, because at 50,000 rupees, you have enough breathing room to actually make a choice. But here's what most people don't realize. If you can maintain your 30,000 rupees expense ceiling even after moving to a 50,000 rupees salary bracket, your surplus doesn't drop to 10,000 rupees. It stays at 20,000 rupees. Now you have actual investing capacity. At 50,000, you have your first real chance to build wealth systematically. Here's the framework. Your emergency fund status is pretty much built because of the earlier phase. By the time you hit 50,000 rupees, you should have about 1 to 1.5 lakh rupees in emergency fund from your earlier time at 30,000 rupees bracket. I know some people start at 1 lakh rupees as well or 2 lakh rupees as well. But the point I'm making here is, you could have started an internship at 30,000 rupees, right? You can apply the principle of the first part here as well. But if you don't have a emergency fund already, build it to 3 months of expenses first. This is actually a non-negotiable. Once you have this sorted, you can now look into some equity investments. You can have your core allocation into a Flexicap fund, something like 70 to 80% of your investment money or 15,000 rupees into a good Flexicap fund. Why Flexicap and not the Nifty 500 ETF? Well, you can go with Nifty 500 ETF. The reason I'm thinking of a Flexicap fund is because you're giving room for a Flexicap fund manager to swing between large, mid and small caps in different allocations rather than fixed allocation of the Nifty 500, right? During the market picks, they're loaded with large cap for stability, and during the crashes, they can move to small or mid cap funds which are probably undervalued at the time. But you as an investor with 15,000 rupees monthly cannot make such decisions yourself. You don't have the time, the data or the experience. A Nifty 500 ETF will always hold those 500 stocks regardless of valuation. A Flexicap fund adjusts, and at your capital size and experience level, that flexibility matters. Now, after all of this, right, you have about 5,000 rupees left, and honestly, you can just use this to grow yourself. You can invest into some courses or just take yourself out, man, once in a while and enjoy your life as well. But here's something everyone gets wrong at 50,000 rupees. You see YouTube videos about small cap funds, mid cap funds, or that thematic funds, and you think you should own all of these. So you end up with 5,000 rupees into large cap fund, 3,000 rupees into small cap fund, another 3,000 into mid cap fund, 2,000 into PSU funds, and 2,000 rupees into Nifty 50 ETF. God knows what all you hold, right? I saw a guy on Reddit. He was doing an SIP of about 7,000 rupees, but he had some 15 funds. Bro, what are you investing? 500 rupees into each fund? Why? At this capital size, you don't need so much diversification, and it's honestly just noise. कुछ भी कर रहे हो तुम, है ना? So diversification starts working effectively when you have 50,000 rupees and above monthly of SIP, not income. At 15,000 rupees monthly, you're just fragmenting your compounding. You're also fragmenting your attention in this already attention lost economy, right? You're tracking 5 funds instead of one. Each fund has good months and bad months, and you start becoming emotional about your decisions. So don't worry about all of that diversification until you reach that monthly SIP of 50,000 rupees. At 50,000 rupees salary, however, with 15,000 rupees SIP, your job is to build the habit and stay consistent. That's it, not to beat the market. Now, you might also be thinking, why can't I just pick stocks for myself? Honest answer is you can, but you shouldn't. Here's why. At 50,000 rupees, you're likely working 10 to 12 hours a day to grow your career. You're trying to get to 1 lakh rupees. You're navigating office politics. You're learning your craft. You don't have the time to research stocks properly. You really don't. You can say, but I spent 30 minutes on YouTube or Twitter reading stock ideas, right? That's exactly where I have a problem. You're reading other people's thesis, not building your own. You're accumulating information, not developing any framework, or you're not developing any understanding of why the decision was taken. When you lose money on a direct stock bet, you need to know why you lost money. Was it a due diligence favor, or bad timing, or market cyclicality, or some corporate governance issue came up? If you picked a stock based on a Twitter thread, you won't know all of these. You'll just be angry that you lost money. But if you invest 15,000 rupees monthly into a Flexicap fund and lose 15,000 rupees in a crash, you'll know exactly why. Market cycles. You can tell yourself, this is normal. I should increase my SIP during crashes, and next month you'll actually do it because you understand the game. Direct stocks require a level of expertise and time that most people at 50,000 rupees simply do not have. Most people at 50,000 rupees salary bracket think, when will I get to first lakh or 1 lakh rupees salary, right? But honestly, ask yourself this question: what happens to me before I get to 1 lakh rupees in income? The answer determines whether you actually make it. If you maintained expense discipline and did not let lifestyle inflation creep in, and invested 15,000 rupees monthly for at least a year or two, kept learning your craft to move to 1 lakh rupees, then you're ready for the next salary bracket. But if you let expenses grow to 40k, 45k, or even 48k, and you stopped your SIPs because the market was too high, stayed in your comfort zone, then you'll find yourself at 50,000 rupees plus, or maybe earning 1 lakh rupees, but you'll never be able to move higher. The 50,000 rupees bracket is all about discipline. The skill you develop here, saying no to lifestyle inflation, staying consistent through market cycles, and this is actually what determines whether you build wealth. Alright, that was the 50,000 rupees bracket. Let's now go to the 1 lakh rupees bracket. I call it the acceleration phase. When you hit 1 lakh rupees, right, two things happen. One, you feel rich. Two, the banks start noticing you. Suddenly, you're getting calls. Sir, you've been pre-approved for a credit card limit of 5,000 rupees. 5,000 rupees? ये तो वो 30,000 वाले को भी मिल जाएगा. Sorry, 5 lakh rupees. The problem is, this is where lifestyle inflation kills more portfolios than bad markets ever will. I know people who went from 50,000 rupees bracket to 1 lakh rupees within a year, and they weren't even saving the difference. Think about that. They doubled their salary, but they're saving less than they were at 50,000 rupees. So what happened? They bought the car they always wanted. They upgraded to a nicer apartment and moved from 20,000 rupees rent to 35,000 rupees rent, or they got the bike, and your girl math stops working if you're a girl watching this. When someone moves to 1 lakh rupees plus bracket, right, they often experience significant life changes, relationships, relocations. I'm so into finance, bro. Personal purchases, all of that, right? These consume the surplus. At 1 lakh rupees, you'd ideally have a surplus of 40,000 rupees plus. But most people at 1 lakh rupees have a surplus of 10,000 rupees to 20,000 rupees because they chose to. But in any case, you should have your emergency fund built already. If you do not have an emergency fund, please build it at least now. You'll thank me later. Your equity portfolio can now get an upgrade. So instead of including too many funds, stick to a Flexicap fund or a Nifty 500 ETF from your 50,000 rupees days. Just increase that SIP from 15,000 rupees to 30,000 rupees. For the rest 10,000 rupees, induce a growth component, and this can be a mid-cap fund. Why mid-cap specifically? Because at 1 lakh rupees, you're transitioning from pure stability to stability plus growth. Mid-caps are the bridge. They're riskier than large caps, but are more stable as compared to a small cap fund per se. Here's the simplest yet the ultimate hack to build your wealth. The rule is simple. Every time your salary increases, your SIP should increase by the same percentage. है ना simple? Let's say you got a 10% hike and your salary went from 1 lakh rupees to 1.1 lakh rupees. Your SIP SIP should go from 40k to 44k or 45k. Now this sounds boring and everybody has told you already, right? But let me show you why it's the best way to build wealth. Like, let's take two scenarios. Scenario A, flat SIP. You do 40,000 rupees SIP monthly for 20 years at 12% average annual returns. Final amount will be around 3.5 crore. But in scenario B, with 10% yearly raise through a step up SIP, you do 40,000 rupees SIP monthly for 20 years, increasing by 10% every year. At the same 12% annual average returns, your final amount will be 7.5 crores approx. Same starting point, but double the result. Now that is the power of geometric progression, that thing you studied in 8th grade that everyone forgot about. But here's the catch. You have to actually do it. When you get a raise, you must increase your SIP. Most people just don't. They upgrade their lifestyle and maintain the same 40,000 rupees SIP. Now that's why most people end up with 2 or 3 crore instead of $1 million. Okay, so here's something actually very important. After the 2024 tax changes, long-term capital gains on mutual funds is taxed at 12.5% if your gains exceed 1.25 lakh rupees in a financial year. That's lower than your income tax rate, probably 20 to 30%. But here's the trap most people fall into. Constant churning equals constant taxation. If you buy and sell stocks or mutual funds frequently, trying to optimize or trying to time the market, you're triggering capital gain taxes every time. You're paying tax on every exit. Over a year, you might pay taxes on 50 to 70,000 rupees in gains across multiple transactions. The math is devastatingly in favor of holding. At 1 lakh rupees salary, your biggest competitive advantage isn't finding the next 10x stock. It's in building scalable systems to increase your SIP and then letting compounding do the hard work. This is honestly the boring and unsexy route, but it's also the only proven method that works at scale. Also, at 1 lakh, you may ask, can I start picking stocks now? The honest answer is maybe, but only if you've maintained consistency in your SIP for at least 3 years without missing even a single month, and you've experienced at least 120% market crash and you did not panic sell during that period, and you genuinely love analyzing businesses and not just chasing tips on YouTube or Instagram or whatever social media platforms, right? You can allocate 10 to 15% of your investment money into direct stocks, and it's only for learning. Your first year might lose money, and that's actually fine because this is your tuition fees. Just start with 3 to 5 stocks. The ideal allocation to have for a portfolio is 20 to 25, but you can eventually build it. But at this point, when you're investing just 10% of your investable corpus, right, the point is to learn. The reason why I'm telling 3 to 5 businesses is because you can analyze those companies and you can actually understand and try to stay within the Nifty 100 universe. Do not go into small cap or some very, very niche sectoral bets because some YouTuber recommended it. Don't do all of that. But if you meet all these criteria, right, just go ahead, allocate 5,000 rupees monthly for stock research and picking. But keep the 30,000 rupees plus 10,000 rupees going into those funds, the Flexicap and the mid-cap fund, right? These funds are your real wealth builder. Direct stocks are your education tool. Most people will ignore this advice and end up losing money, and that's fine. That's how you learn. But at least you understood what you were getting into. Next up, we go to the folks earning about 1.5 lakh rupees to 2 lakh rupees and more. Your problem is no more how do I make money grow. Your problem is now how do I not lose everything that you're having, holding or making, right? Let's be honest, at 1.5 lakh rupees, if you do a 75,000 rupees monthly SIP, get even 10% average returns, do this for 15 years and you'll have more than 3 crore rupees. The math is solved. You don't need to optimize returns anymore. You've won the game. So why do successful people at this level start making bad decisions? Because they've been right for 10 years and now they think they understand the markets. They read one blog post about undervalued micro caps and throw 5 lakh rupees at it. They understand real estate and buy a commercial property into an emerging area that sits empty for 3 years. They feel smart and suddenly need to prove it by making bigger bets. Now this is where I see more 2 lakh rupees plus earners end up with less wealth than 1 lakh rupees earner who stay boring and consistent with their SIPs. At 1.5 lakh rupees, your constraint isn't return, it's correlation and currency risk. If 100% of your assets are in Indian equities and real estate, you're holding a single currency bet, and that is the Indian rupee. Think about this. Your income is in Indian rupees, your job is in India, your family is in India, your business, if you have one, is in India, and all your relationships are in India. Your entire systematic risk is concentrated in one country. What happens if India faces a credit rating downgrade? What happens if inflation spikes and RBI makes hard hard choices. What happens if there's a geopolitical event that weakens the rupee, like we are already seeing? Your income, your job security, and your wealth all take a hit simultaneously. Now, this is called systematic risk, and it's the one risk you can't diversify away if you don't take an action. And now, this is where international allocation enters. You can start with 10 to 15% of your portfolio by using an international equity fund. Could be US, Europe, or any of the emerging markets, Shanghai, any of these, right? This isn't about maximizing returns, but true diversification. I mean, come on, you use an iPhone, you use Google, you use ChatGPT, Perplexity, Netflix, all your digital expenses are dollar linked. Your investments should be too. A smart strategy could be to allocate 10 to 15% into an US equity fund. Now, why US specifically? Because if rupee fails against the dollar, your portfolio value goes up. It acts as a hedge. US companies are global, be it Apple, Microsoft, Google, and these earn in multiple currencies. Liquidity is excellent. If the rupee falls 25%, you want the USD value to go up because your dollar denominated expenses, all those subscriptions and travel, become cheaper in rupees, offsetting the loss of rupee value. Another way to diversify is that, again, I mean, most people at 1 lakh rupees and above think gold is for their mom to wear or their wife to wear, right? But actually at 1.5 lakh rupees or 2 lakh rupees and above, gold must be a portfolio component. Gold has a low correlation with equities. When markets crash, gold often goes up, or at least doesn't crash at the same time as that of equity. Now, why does this happen? Because during market crashes, investors flee to safety, and gold is the ultimate safety asset. But not jewelry here, never jewelry, right? If you buy 1 lakh rupees in gold jewelry, you instantly lose about 20% in making charges. That 1 lakh rupees is now worth 75 to 80,000 rupees just in making charges, just the moment you get it into an ornament. Instead of buying that, buy gold ETFs in demat form. It's the only asset that pays you to hold insurance. Again, one more thing, guys, buy gold ETFs. Do not buy gold mutual funds, because in India, most of gold mutual funds are structured as fund of funds. You don't want to pay an expense ratio on that ETF and again a fund holding that. You are paying the expense ratio twice. Do not make that mistake. Just buy gold ETFs, right? And at 1.5 lakh rupees or above, you can consider 10 to 15% of your surplus into direct stock picking, but only if you're interested in it and you've proven to yourself that you understand at least 5 companies deeply. Honestly, even prepare to risk this money. You might even lose this, and this should not change your wealth building timeline. Honestly, do this only if you enjoy analyzing the business. This shouldn't feel like work. You're already working hard at 2 lakh rupees. You don't want to be working after work also. That gets very stressful, right? Why only after 1.5 lakh rupees or 2 lakh rupees? Because the math is already solved. You're not depending on stock picks to become a millionaire. You're already on track to become a millionaire through your SIPs, but you're doing it because you're interested, right? This reframes your entire psychology. You're not gambling, you're learning. The ideal scenario could be something like you have 75,000 rupees of monthly surplus, of which 30,000 rupees per month goes into a Nifty 500 or a Flexicap fund for stability, 15,000 rupees per month goes into a mid-cap fund for growth, and 10,000 rupees per month into a small-cap fund only if you're comfortable with the volatility, and 10,000 rupees per month into an international equity fund, preferably US for currency hedge as well, and another 10,000 rupees into gold ETFs. Now that's your 75,000 rupees allocation. This is a sample framework. You can play around these based on your risk capacity, income levels, and goals. Everything else is life savings and emergency buffer, and maybe learn direct stock picking only if you're passionate about the stock markets. Let me be clear, international funds might underperform Indian equities for the next 10 years, and that's very much possible. But why do it at all? Because if they underperform by 2 to 3% annually, but India faces a geopolitical crisis that crashes the rupee by 20%, your international allocation will save your money. You're not trying to beat the market. You're trying to not lose everything to one systematic failure. This is what risk management looks like at 1.5 lakh rupees and above. Now, let me summarize the entire framework. At 30,000 rupees, you invest in yourself. Your constraint is capital availability plus stability. So your strategy is to build an emergency fund and upskill aggressively. Your win would be to get to 50,000 rupees within the next couple of years. At 50,000 rupees, you invest in stability. Your constraint is lifestyle inflation. So your strategy is to be disciplined prudent on expenses and invest in a Flexicap fund, your win would be to have 1 lakh plus salary and 10 lakh rupees plus in investments. At 1 lakh rupees, you invest in stability and growth. Your constraint could be holding through volatility and tax efficiency. So you invest in a Flexicap fund and a mid cap fund with a step up SIP. Your win would be to get to 2 to 3 crores portfolio. And at 2 lakh rupees and above, you invest in preservation plus diversification. Your constraints are concentration risk plus currency risk. Your strategy would be all the above with international funds and gold funds or gold ETFs. And your win here would be financial independence by 50. Now, these are just frameworks. There's no right or wrong way of doing it, but this is a very good guideline for you guys to be following or building better models on top of it. If you are already 40 and if you do not have enough saved up corpus for your retirement, you still have time. You can still make it. There's nothing to be depressed about. Or if you're stuck at a 30,000 rupees salary bracket and you're a 28-year-old, you still have a lot of time to make it. There's nothing to be sad about. These are the frameworks for whenever you get to that salary bracket at whatever age, and not just to be put in a certain age bracket also. But here's what separates people who build wealth from people who just earn money, right? From my little experience of building a 70,000 rupees portfolio, I've seen the best way to build wealth is to increase the gap between your income and your expenses. Then invest the additional money super aggressively. If you earn 2 lakh rupees and let's say your expenses are also 1.8 or 1.9 lakh rupees, you're financially poorer than that guy earning 50,000 rupees and saving 20,000 rupees, because the second person has optionality. They can handle emergencies, they can take calculated risk, they can switch companies, they have a breathing room. So before you master the market, right, master your own cash flow, master your own psychology, because the person who will get this will build wealth. The person who ignores this and instead tries to time the market or pick the perfect fund will end up at 30 lakh rupees wondering what went wrong despite earning 2 lakh rupees plus for 15 to 20 plus years. Now, if you found value in this breakdown, the biggest thing I can tell you is this. This is not about financial knowledge, it's about behavioral discipline. The person who does a 15,000 rupees Flexicap SIP for 5 years without missing a single month will outwealth the person who researches 15 different investment options, 30 different stocks, and makes that perfect choice. Because consistency compounds. Research doesn't really compound. And talking of that, I am not a SEBI registered advisor and this is not financial advice. I'm sharing the exact thinking that helped me build my 70 lakh rupees portfolio by 25 and that I'm using on my journey to reach 1 crore by the next 12 to 15 months. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see this journey unfold in real time, not as a promise of returns, but as a documentation of actual thinking, first principles, and actual mistakes as well. Let's build that first crore together. This is Vikas Kulkarni signing off.